Thomas Thirst videos are brought to you by my Patreons and viewers like you. Thank you.
Who are you?
My name's Bert.
He's
Bert.
yours.
Bert.
I'm.
Bert.
Are there any other
Bert.
I should know about?
It's the old warrior!
Something I've always found interesting about Thomas is how some of the characters actually share the same name. Like how Bert shares his name with Iron Bert, or how Oliver shares his name with Oliver the Excavator. There's even characters who have variations or similarities in their names, such as Bill and Billy.
I'm Billy!
Or Frank and Frankie.
And I'm Frankie.
This is a thing TV shows usually try to avoid, as it can be confusing for marketing characters. But despite this, Thomas has actually made many characters with similar names. Honestly, I kinda like that the show had characters with similar names. It's kinda like real life where people share similar names. I mean, we've all had that one friend in school who just so happened to have the same name as us. I actually kinda like how the show pokes fun at this in Lost Treasure, where Marion gets confused between the two Olivers. And they even made merch with the two Olivers too. However, in the Thomas franchise, the most reused character name without a doubt is Bert. There are roughly 11 characters that I found in the franchise who either have the name Bert or have a variation of that character name, and so today we're going to go through all of the Berts in the franchise and rank them from worst to best.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Adam asked me to talk about all the Berts in the series, and since myself and Will both share the same names, me and other Will thought it would be fun to join Adam.
On with the Berts.
With all that out of the way, let's get into this Thomas tier list. Starting off with number 13, we have Bert, or Bert Coke. Bert Coke is the owner of Bert Coke Coal Merchants and is the only magazine character on this list. I don't really talk about the magazine characters since they are absolutely not canon, but since he is called Bert, I'd figure I'd add him to the list. Bert made his only appearance in the Thomas magazine story, Food for Thomas. In the story, Thomas is collecting food for the market when he gets sad that he can't eat the food like people at the market. Okay. But later, when Thomas runs out of coal, his crew buys some coal from Bert Coke, and Thomas is then happy because he realizes that coal is like food for trains. Yeah, this is a very weird story. Now, the reason Bert Coke is so low on this list is because, well, there really isn't much to him. He just gave Thomas's crew some coal, and that was kind of it. A really nothing character in a very weird story. But hey, he is still a Bert, so he makes it onto the list. And at number 12, we have Bert the Cleaner. Bert the Cleaner is another unimportant non-Thomas character in the series. He is a cleaner who worked at Vickerstown Yards with another worker known as Alf, only being seen in one railway series story.
2 men were cleaning Gordon.
And Bert complains about how Gordon is giving them extra work to do.
Here, Bert, did you ever see such mud? No, Alf, I never did. You ought to be ashamed, Gordon, giving us extra work like this.
However, in the TV series adaptation, Bert and Alf's names are removed.
He tells Gordon off. He says, "You ought to be ashamed of yourself, Gordon." That proves that this Bert is honest and hard-working, and we should be more like Bert, one of the best Berts in the series.
Again, there really isn't too much to Bert the Cleaner, but hey, at least they gave him a bit of characterization, and weirdly enough, he wouldn't be the only Bert in the series to have an issue with mud. Number 11, we have Bert, or Bert the Porter. In the railway series book, Mainline Engines, the porters that take the beehive to the platform are named Fred and Bert.
Mind your backs! Mind your backs! Two porters were taking a loaded trolley to the front van. Fred drove while Bert walked behind.
Man, what was it with Awdry naming random workers Bert?
Careful, Fred, careful! Warned Bert, but Fred was in a hurry and didn't listen.
However, the beehive still falls over, and much like the previous story leaves, their names are again omitted from the story.
I must say, this is safety-conscious Bert. Honestly, it's Fred's fault that the bees have flown out like this, and because of Fred's utter incompetence, he's probably going to lose his job.
Again, there really isn't that much to say about Bert the Porter. The only reason he's above Bert the Cleaner is because, well, at least he actually added something to the story.
We need more porters like Bert in the real world.
And in 10th place, we have Albert, the mid-soda engine. Albert was most likely Likely a maroon narrow gauge tank engine who worked on the Mid-Sodor, and he was more than likely the 5th engine bought by the railway. I say more than likely because Albert's lore is kind of all over the place. For example, in the Mark I layout, Albert is actually an American design, and then in the Mark II, he was possibly another Falcon locomotive like Sir Handel, and then in the Mark III layout, he's just a freelance design.
We don't know his personality, and with his multiple models, we don't even have an idea on what he looks like. It's not even clear if the character even exists at all within the Railway series canon.
There is literally no information about Albert's character, and we have no idea what he would have been like. According to Awdry's scrapbook, he even pulled a train called the Parliamentary Train on the railway. His fate afterwards is unknown, but he was more than likely scrapped after 1936. So I placed him here on the list, since despite him not appearing, I honestly just found his lore more interesting than those other Berts that I've mentioned so far.
We don't know a lot about this Albert, but he is still a Bert, so he could still go on the list.
And in 9th place, we have Bertram, the Old Warrior. This ranking is very hard, since I'm pretty much ranking a bunch of non-characters together. It's like asking me to rank different shades of grey. I wonder if this book could help me anyway. Oh, no! Speaking of bland, we have Bertram. He was introduced as the ghost that scared Toby in Series 5, and that's kind of it. There's not that much to him. He didn't speak in his appearance, and we never really saw him again.
What can you say? There's nothing to say about Bertram. He appears once, and then never again. There's nothing to say about him. He's a terrible Bert. Why can't these Berts be as good as the ones in the Railway series?
No, I think the fandom kind of has a soft spot for Bertram, just because of our headcanons for him, or because of his merchandise. Going by what we actually see in the show itself, there really isn't that much to him. Like, he doesn't even speak. An intriguing character that wasn't really expanded upon, but hey, that's what fan stories are all about.
Despite being the love child of Smudger and Duke, there's a lot to talk about and theorise in regard to Bertram. How did he get his nickname, the Old Warrior? He's notoriously brave, but what gained him that reputation? It's a shame that we'll never know, but it's intriguing to think about. Also, I named my childhood teddy bear after him while getting my organs replaced, because Bertram was brave and I wanted to be brave. A very underappreciated Bert, I must say.
And in 8th place, we have Albert, the Furness railway engine. Yeah, another Albert. Albert is also kind of a non-character in the series, and he was also one of the few characters created by Christopher Awdry. In Thomas and Victoria, Victoria and Edward reminisce about the old days, where Victoria talks about her old friends, Albert the steam engine, and Helen the coach. Apparently, Albert was similar to Thomas, calling the snow silly stuff, calling the snow silly stuff, calling the snow silly soft stuff, only for him to be buried in a tunnel. Wow. What an original story there, Chris. Haven't heard of this one before.
He's a character that is a clear parallel to Thomas. They're both a little too big for their smoke boxes sometimes, hate snow, and have a close bond with their coaches. While his story is a less interesting rewrite of Thomas Terence and the Snow, I still do enjoy it, and I think Albert is a worthy Bert.
According to the coach Victoria, he was old, but gentlemanly and polite, which is good. Good qualities in an Albert.
While this is, in my opinion, one of the better Chris stories, because, you know, something is actually happening, I feel like this clone of Thomas's first story dealing with snow leaves a lot to be desired. But since they actually did something with him in canon, I think I'll place him here, even though I'll probably forget about him the second this sentence is over. And in 7th place, we have Albert, the workman. That's right, our third Albert on the list. Now, I'm sure you're all asking, why did I put this CGI workman this high on the list? Well, weirdly enough, they actually did do a lot more stuff with Albert the workman in the series than you'd realize. Albert was a workman who worked at Knapford Station, first appearing in Series 19. When a baby wouldn't stop crying on Annie and Clarabelle, Thomas comes up with an idea to calm the baby down. It's later revealed that the baby is the son of a workman named Albert. Albert and his wife later decide to name the baby Thomas after the day's events.
We must call him Thomas.
I love how Topham thought they were going to name the baby after him. So funny. So not only does Albert share his name with an engine, but now his son Thomas shares his name with an engine too. Like father, like son, I guess. Weirdly enough though, Albert becomes a bit of a reoccurring character in the series, reappearing in Emily to the Rescue, where he tells Topham about the crash. He then appears again in Thomas's Fuzzy Friend, where his son, little Thomas, is all grown up now. And he later adopts a dog named Fuzzy. I really love that they did this continuity with Albert. And and he would even be seen later again at Tidmouth with his wife, little Thomas, and their dog. Now I'm sure some of you are thinking Albert should be a lot lower on this list, but I kind of disagree. I think they did loads of cool stuff with this random workman. From him being the only workman in the CGI series to have a name, to having him be Welsh, to giving him a wife and son, and then having that son adopt a dog years later when he's all grown up. He's easily one of the most fleshed out workman characters in the series, and I think that alone makes him more interesting than all those other Alberts that we've talked about in this video. I honestly didn't expect to rank this random workman this high on the list, but hey, they did a lot of stuff with him in the series, way more than the other Berts we've mentioned so far, so I think it's only fair that he ranks above them. And in 6th place, we have Wilbert, or the Rev W. Awdry. That's right, even the creator of Thomas the Tank Engine himself is a Bert. Reverend Wilbert Awdry, as we all know, is the creator of Thomas. His name is actually a combination of his uncle's names, William and Herbert, making him Wilbert. That's right, Awdry is technically canon to Thomas, and has appeared in the books and the TV series. I've actually done a video breaking down his appearances throughout the Railway series and the CGI series, if you want to check it out. It's just so funny to me that he put himself in his own universe. However, I'm talking specifically about how Awdry was used as a character in the show. And as a character, he doesn't do that much. He's usually just there as a little Easter egg, although they definitely did a good bit with Wilbert and Teddy Boston in the CGI series. So he goes here on the list. And in 5th place, we have Wilbert, the austerity engine. Wilbert is a slightly uninteresting character, if I'm being honest. What's interesting about him though is that Wilbert was actually based on a real austerity tank that was named after the Reverend Wilbert Awdry, hence his name, Wilbert. I also love the fact that Christopher decided to make a book about him. It's a very meta thing to do, but unfortunately Wilbert himself isn't that interesting of a character. He's just sort of a hard-working, polite, kind engine. There really isn't that much to him, if I'm being honest. No wonder everyone tries to headcanon him as 16, but he did get a full book dedicated to himself, and I think those 3 stories are somewhat interesting, so he goes here on the list. While he's a very uninteresting character, I do somewhat enjoy his book. And in 4th place, we have Bertram, or Sir Bertram Topham Hatt. So this is a very weird one, and I wasn't sure how to rank it in the list, but for some reason, and I still don't know why to this day, but for some reason in the Nitrogen era, the Fat Controller was always called Bertram by Dowager Hatt.
Oh my, Bertram! What a wonderful surprise! Bertram.
I have no idea why this was, as he was never called Bertram before, and even in later Brenner era they retconned this by having him be called Topham by Dowager Hatt, making this a Nitrogen era exclusive thing. So for this ranking, I will only be taking those seasons into account when talking about him. So in the Nitrogen era, I actually think they handled Topham pretty well. Dare I say he's one of the better handled characters in that era. He's always very authoritative, he acts pretty much how the Fat Controller should act. I think he's honestly one of the few characters who's actually acting rationally, unlike everything else in that era. Not to mention how Keith Wickham and Kerry Shale give him such an authoritative voice.
The balloons! We must have balloons!
On my birthday.
What do you think you are doing? Oh no! You had better go and find them!
The fact that he is still memed on to this day shows how much of an impact that Kerry Shale's Fat Controller had in the series. While it's weird that he had the name Bertram, I guess it's not totally unrealistic. Many nobilities actually had nicknames from what their official titles were. King George VI, for example, had the nickname Bertie. Perhaps it's a similar situation here for the Fat Controller, where people close to Sir Topham, like his mother, will use names like Bertram with no actual historical context. At least, that's my personal interpretation of this weird error. And in 3rd place, we have Bert, or Iron Bert. Here's a fun fact for you. Ever wonder why they call him Iron Bert in the series? This name actually has to do with legal issues with Bert and Ernie from Sesame Street, or as I like to call them, Bert and Ernie. Sesame Street had the trademark on the character name Bert, so to avoid legal troubles with Bert, that's why the twins are actually called Iron Ari and Iron Bert in toys. All thanks to Bert and
When you think Bert, this is the character that probably comes to mind. His introduction was very interesting. In his first scene, he and Harry attempt to murder Stepney. In the episode, Bert didn't say anything, suggesting that he was the brawn to Harry's brains. Sadly, from Series 6 onwards, they made the two characters into generic bullies, with little to differentiate them from Diesel.
In his second appearance, he, along with Harry, plays a trick on James. That episode is also pretty bad. These TV series Berts do not live up to the Railway series Berts.
But the fact that he stayed a prominent character for the rest of the show clearly shows the longevity he had as part of the universe.
Unlike the other Berts so far, at least they did get to do a lot of things in the series. From having them be menacing to having them tease or harass the other steam engines, they did wear a lot of hats in the series. So I'll place Bert here on the list. And in second place, we have Bert, the miniature engine. Going into this video, I thought Bert would be at the top of the list, but there's one more Bert I think just beats him out of that top spot. So I actually quite like Bert as a character in the series. He's a blue engine from the miniature railway, with his basis being from River Ert, hence the name Bert. Also, similar to how Bert's name had to be changed to Iron Bert, all thanks to Bert and Ernie, this is why on all of Bert's wooden railway toys and his take and play toys, he is always called Bert the miniature engine, while Rex and Mike are just called by their names.
He's a kind engine, but he has a short temper, and tit for tat shows that he can be vengeful. He also struggles with his health, reminding me of my favourite character, Henry. It's a shame that his rebuild was never depicted in the books, because I think there was so much more of Bert for Christopher Awdry to explore. However, let's not forget that Bert was the first character to meet the Reverend W. Awdry himself in the series, so Bert's legacy is undeniable.
So he assaulted the Reverend. Bert the Arsdale engine has assaulted the Reverend by spraying water on him, and that is unacceptable, and he is, canonically, one of the worst Berts. I'm sure that upset him very much. How dare he do that? Awful behaviour from Bert the Arsdale engine, one of the worst Berts ever.
And in first place, we have Bertie, the bus. It's weird, going into this video, I thought I was going to pick Bert as the best character, but after thinking about it, I think Bertie is honestly the best Bert character. So, as we all know, Bertie is the little red bus who is always racing Thomas in the series, arguably the most iconic road vehicle in the franchise. There is such a lovely simplicity to Bertie that I've always appreciated. Bertie is a personification of real-life rivalries that buses and railways would often have. I love Bertie's cocky attitude. He's like the perfect rival for Thomas. He's a really fun character, and he's always a joy to see whenever he's on screen.
A truly fascinating character who introduced the world of the road vehicles to the franchise. Although I do really enjoy him in the TV series, where the running joke is just that his life's a living hell. I think that Bertie should be given all of the honour and respect he deserves.
While this list is dedicated to the best Berts in the series, it is in my humble opinion that Bertie Bus is the best of the Berts. So yeah, that was every Bert ranked in Thomas.
Well, hello! The Earl of Sodor here.
Oh no!
So while making this list, I might have forgotten about Sir Robert Norramby. I mean, he is technically a Bert, being Sir Robert, so... Sir Robert Norramby is one of my favourite characters from the CGI series, and apparently, according to Ian McHugh, he was inspired between a mix of the Earl of Bath and Richard Branson, hence his white haircut and his beard.
He's quite a good Robert, an acceptable chap. He's very nice, very eccentric, bit kooky, but that's just what you expect from the TV series.
So Robert Norramby, what a guy. He's one of the most fun Thomas characters in the franchise. Although he comes in at a late era, the passion that he has for everything he does, be it rebuilding the castle, and it's impossible to not get sucked along into that fun with him. He's one of the people that you just wish could be your friend. He's a character that really makes the Brenner era as special as it is.
If I had to rank him anywhere, I'd honestly put him between the Arlesdale Bert and Bertie, if I'm being honest. So yeah, that's officially every Bert and Thomas ranked.
Even Bert the Arsdale engine, he has character, unlike all the other Berts in the TV series that are just awful, absolutely terrible, and I hate all of them. But you know two characters I don't hate? Duck and Diesel. In fact, I made a video about Duck and the Diesel engine, and it's on my channel now. Thanks Adam for linking that in the description.
Bruh.
Well, thanks for watching everyone, and I have an Awdry Extravaganza video in the works, and so if you guys wouldn't mind checking it out, I would be very appreciative. It also features my side of the story in regards to the car versus train race.
So, let me know if you would rank the Berts and the series any differently. Also, I want to give a special shout out to TTE Guy, who was kind enough to edit the intro of this video for me. And I will see you all in the next one. Slán Abhaile.
My name's Bert.